Hey, hello, and this is Pam Gallagher, and today is dum-de-dum-dum. Today is December 6th, 2021. And this is just a discussion on the holidays and the beginning of the year and what all of our charts kind of look like from a general perspective. There's no charge for tonight, and it will be put on YouTube. There are people that like to tune in once in a while and get an update. So that's what we're doing. School is pretty much out. The Wednesday night group has a class, and Thursday night we'll have a class this week. And then we are done for this holiday season. So we are recording. So here we go. I accepted somebody, but I don't know who it was. Not uncommon. So, no, she was already here. Unless, she may come back in.
Exactly.
I'd first like to say, because I have some students here that I level ones and stuff that I won't see now till the first of the year. So Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, whatever. Happy new season, whatever it is that, is appropriate to your world and your life. And the solstice, yes. We're coming up on the winter solstice, and I have that chart. We're going to, and we're going to talk about it. So today, here are the transits, but I want to go back to the solar eclipse, which was Saturday. And Saturday morning, we had a solar eclipse, and it was a 12-degree Sagittarius. Solar eclipses by nature bring new energy, new beginnings. This particular one it's the last one that we have in the Gemini Sag pairing for 9 years. So this will be the last one. And we move back into the Taurus Scorpio. Gemini and Sagittarius are flexible, mutable, changeable. So we've been in this time eclipse season wise of change and mutability and making and adapting, making changes and adapting and making changes. So this eclipse at 12 Sage made a very hard aspect to the planet Uranus. Electrical change, new instability. So this solar eclipse is calling for change. It's calling for adjustment, adaptation, and change. An eclipse quincunx Uranus in the astrological language. And you're like, okay. Now we know, just from listening, that when we run eclipses, or we run, and we're going to look at the ingress, the Capricorn ingress in a minute. They're called mundane charts, and you will run it. We run this for Washington, D.C., because that's the capital of our country. If we wanted to know how, now, the chart, all the degrees and minutes will remain exactly the same. But if I run this for Russia, or I run it for China, or I run it for the Philippines, all the planets by house will change. It'll still be 12 Sag, 22 minutes. That will be the solar eclipse. Every planet will hold by degree and minute, but the houses that they fall in will change. So for us, the United States, it is about money and values and resources and stability. That's what this eclipse, and it's an unstable situation because it's eclipsing Uranus. And so in the money and budgets and finance are all up in the air for us. Probably the next eclipse season is in April, May. Eclipses come about 6 months apart. And so this eclipse, quincunx, the other big thing that is going on is, of course, let's go to today. It's transiting Saturn. Saturn is our work and our duty and our life lessons here on Earth. And Saturn takes about 2.5 years to go through a sign, and it's in the sign of Aquarius now. So Saturn's pretty strong in Aquarius. It was the original classical ruler of Aquarius before Uranus showed up in the 1700s. So for 3,000 years, Saturn ruled both Capricorn and Aquarius. So Saturn's kind of the ruler. But it's the ruler of groups, organizations, community, and commitment. And so Saturn, being structure, concrete, boundaries, stability, tradition, old, rooted. Those are all Capricorn, Saturn words. And Saturn right now is at 9.5, and Uranus is at 11. And on December 24th, and here is the winter solstice. Sun enters Capricorn. Here it is. This is the 21st. We'll talk about this. But you can see here that Saturn will be at 10, almost 11, and Uranus is at 11. And so right at about 11:05 or 4 minutes, Saturn and Uranus are going to exact square 3 days later. We've been coming into this. We started a year ago with the Saturn Uranus, January and then June and now. But this is when the whole COVID and so a lot of people are associating the COVID with the change of structure. Here is Saturn. Saturn is structure and boundaries and rules, and Uranus is change, breaking loose, changing the old, breaking it up. So here we are, people. This is a third time round on Saturn Uranus. Change, but it's forcing change. It's forcing things through an instate. But what we're doing is creating a new consciousness. Because I truly believe that those of us who are alive on the planet now, during this time, chose as souls to be here. And anybody in this, certainly in this community of people, at some level, some soul level, has agreed to be here to be a stabilizer for the change of the seasons, the change of the ages. And so everybody says, well, what am I supposed to do? Be as stable as you can be. But so you have to ask yourself, on this winter solstice, December 21st, and it will be at 11 a.m. basically, Washington, D.C., a.m., 11 a.m. on the 21st. You want to meditate that morning. What is that day? Let's look. The 21st Tuesday is a Tuesday. So Tuesday morning, take time, and if you're going to work, then do it before you go, to meditate on what new form your life needs to take. Because Saturn was the old pattern and Uranus is the new pattern. And it's time to change our gait. It's time to change our method. So you have to say, what is Saturn square Uranus? What's it want me to do? And you might look at where Saturn is in your chart and then where Uranus is, which is the planet of change and electricity and instability. So it says, where is Uranus falling in my chart? It's at 11 Taurus. And so if you know how to read your chart, if not, ask somebody. Where would Uranus fall in my chart? Anybody that's on here knows somebody that knows how to look at a chart. They can tell you what house, what area. But I believe that this is changing our life direction. And I think we have to learn how to do new. We have to learn how to live differently. And so I want you to contemplate for yourself, what does this change of structure mean? Saturn being structure, Uranus being change. What does this change of structure mean to me personally? We certainly can look at the country. This ingress for the United States, the sun is up in the 10th house. Certainly unstable in the money situation, which means maybe even the market may be going up and down. Uranus being changeable. and the second house being money. Neptune in the first house of the United States chart. Neptune is the great dissolver. So what clouds will be dissolved? What myths will be dissolved? What may show up as uncovered during this period of time? And what is the period of time? It's between December 21st and March 20th. It's between the winter solstice and the spring equinox. It is a quarter, and we talk in terms of when people do weather, they do mundane projecting for countries. They usually do it by the quarter. So they look at these ingresses, the 4 seasons, whether it's an equinox or a solstice, for the change. And Neptune is there. So luckily, we don't, the 7th house would be our enemies and other countries, and Mars is not there, so we're not looking for any attacks from outside. But the focus certainly is on the government, 10th house. Legislature has 3 of its 10 planets. Why will these myths dissolve now with Neptune, says Karen Taylor. Neptune's job is to dissolve old visions, old pictures. And so Neptune quite often can be deception or cloudy or misty or idealistic. Depends on whether you're talking physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual body. But Neptune is a great dissolver. So I think for the country, we're going to be seeing a dissolving of either boundaries or old storylines or old beliefs, so be conscious that Neptune will be very strong for the whole country. Now the communication is 3rd house, and for anybody, but for the country, and North Node is there. So it says, new communication methods, probably new communication methods. So as far as now, the solstice, that's what that is. But let's go back to, we can go back to today. I mean, the eclipse of today, what's the difference? The sun's in Sag, moon's in Capricorn, but that the moon goes around every month, it's going to be in all 12 signs. But what's happening on a bigger picture? Well, first of all, Neptune, the planet that we were talking about, uncovering and dissolving and disclosing, Neptune just went direct. It has been retrograde for 5 months, and this last week it went direct. And so there is a lot more unclouding. It might be a good word for it, clearing up. So when you look at your own chart and you say, well, where does transiting Neptune fall at 20 Pisces? Or like I said, ask somebody that knows, can read the chart and say, well, Neptune in your chart is here. But that's the area where you might be seeing things differently. So the other thing that's occurring, I mean, Neptune has certainly gone direct. The nodes are changing from the Gemini Sag back into the Taurus Scorpio, and they'll be there 18 months. Therefore, the eclipse will be in Taurus Scorpio. Taurus Scorpio is our natural axis of money and resources and investments. And so, and even financial rulings. So that's what's going to be eclipsed for the next 18 months. But this is for the whole world. This is not just for the United States. Not just for the whole United States. I had not brought up, I will bring up the United States chart here. And it's called the Sibley Chart because Ebenezer Sibley is the one that was there when they signed the papers in 1776. He said that's what the clock on the tower said. Interesting. I just was speaking up in New York this fall, and I showed somebody showed the Sibley chart, and somebody asked the woman who showed the chart, where does that chart come from? And she said, I don't know. And so if you don't know, it was somebody that was there at the signing, the Declaration of Independence. So the American chart, we just had the lunar eclipse on November 19th was at 27 Taurus. It squared the moon in our country's chart. The moon is the people. It's been a rather emotional fall and an up and down for the people. The solar eclipse, and I'll put the chart right around the United States chart. Here it is. The eclipse had come in right on the ascendant of the chart. And so what does that mean? What does a solar eclipse on the ascendant? What is the ascendant of any chart? It's how you appear. It's your outer world. It's the front door. And there's an eclipse there. So how are we going to change? We're obviously trying to change our appearance, change how we're seen. And Sagittarius is an international sign, global. So we're trying to pick up get a new face to the world, if you would say. An eclipse on the ascendant would be a change to the world. And then Jupiter rules Sagittarius. So where is Jupiter? And Jupiter's over here in the 7th house of out in the world, but maybe even our enemies or those who come from us. So there's a lot of focus. Look at this, the eclipse on the ascendant, but we have 4 planets. Well, the U.S. has 4 planets in the 7th, natally. So where is transiting Jupiter coming in? It's coming in right on the moon. This is good for the people for this solar eclipse because Jupiter is blessings and the moon is the people. And so I truly think, for what it's worth, it's my opinion, and that's what we're talking about tonight, isn't it? I told you when Saturn squared Uranus this time, I thought that this was the last peak of the COVID thing. They will come back within a degree at the end of September, October at 18 degrees of the fixed signs, but they do not, to the minute, don't come back together. So I think that that's the very end of it. I think that's the waning of it. So I am thinking that by January, by the end of December, we have reached our peak, and that it's going to begin the dissipation process. Another reason for that is that Jupiter is in Aquarius, and Jupiter will be coming into Pisces here very, very soon. Let me see. I move this forward exactly 1 month. Tricia, do you know when Jupiter enters Pisces? Well, it's before January 21st.
December 29th.
Okay, so
Or so.
Okay, so I just wanted to go.
Yeah,
I just wanted to go 7 days or 8. So we're from the 21st, if we go 8 days, right at the new year. So Jupiter will be coming into Pisces. Now, Jupiter in Aquarius is one thing, and Jupiter in Pisces is another. Pisces rules immunity, immune systems. That's because it's our sensitivity to the environment. And Jupiter in Aquarius was a bit detached, but Jupiter in Pisces, Jupiter is the old classic ruler of Pisces. And this, to me, is in January when the immune systems and things start to work. And Jupiter will be there for about a year. And I consider that to be a big blessing. If I run the transits for the forecast, and we've looked at this before, and I will show it to you in picture. Transit. And I want Mars. I don't want Mars. The Pluto will have too many. We'll just go Jupiter. Here was your Saturn, Uranus back in, this is in December. Here it comes next September, October. Very close, but not quite touching. In April, Jupiter will conjunct Neptune. Now, why do we care when Jupiter comes up and hits Neptune? Because Jupiter being blessings, Neptune being sensitivity, and I believe that this is when they come up with, Jupiter positive energy. So by April, I feel that when Jupiter and Neptune make their conjunction, that we're going to be pulling over the other side of this. So those of you who are hoping to travel next summer probably can leave the country. I think that they will have lowered the gates and let the animals out of their cages by that time. So this I consider to be a very positive thing for the whole world. Because remember, Jupiter and Neptune will conjunct, not just for the United States, but now here is, I said, well, we would talk about the holidays. Well, the holidays being December 21st. I mean, on the 29th, Jupiter goes into Pisces, and so it should be a much more festive New Year's. Yes, festive New Year is a good language for it. More fun. The winter solstice itself is fairly calm. There's not a lot of horrendous patterns there that have to be dealt with. The Saturn Uranus, but it's been there so long. People are like, oh, Saturn's going to square Uranus. I've been doing it for a year. It's the end of it. Moon opposition Venus is actually very pleasant. It's a very nice aspect. And the moon moves very quickly. So the moon moves anywhere from 12 to 15 degrees a day, basically. And so moon is opposing Venus, and Venus is pleasant. So this moon-Venus aspect should not be difficult. So before we break here, and we'll talk about, so I talked about, let's see, the Sun and Mercury keep moving. Jupiter's going to move into Pisces. Saturn's staying in Aquarius. It's going to go up into 20. It's staying in Aquarius. We got about another year and a half of Saturn in Aquarius before it goes to Pisces. Saturn's very strong as far as structure. This, to me, is a positive. Saturn Aquarius says hold steady. And Aquarius is groups and communities, and so Saturn will stabilize our communities. And I think that it has. I think people are staying in their own small communities, Saturn and Aquarius, and that's a stabilizing factor. Everybody's staying in their own country, their own town, their own community. In the holidays, they're staying with their own family. Everybody's doing Saturn. And besides, on this last eclipse in November, Uranus and Jupiter were involved, and it was so chaotic because there were so many accidents. It was a huge laundry list of accidents, and crisis. So I think all of us in November had our share of accidents and crisis and instability. So I think that Saturn holding in Aquarius is a blessing. Uranus is still in Taurus. I mean, trying to break up old concrete is what it's trying to do. And sometimes it hits us pretty hard if we don't let go. That's Uranus, Neptune, and then you got Pluto. And Pluto's in Capricorn. Pluto this year will come up to 27, almost 28. We're 2 years before Pluto leaves Capricorn and goes into Aquarius. But Pluto is usually in a sign anywhere from 18 to 21 years. That's about the longevity of it. So Pluto's been in Capricorn a very long time, but Pluto is the transformer. Pluto is the shifter. Pluto is the dig deep and make change. Rules death, endings, and transformation into the old, beginning of the new. And Capricorn, before Pluto leaves Capricorn, our government structure will be changed. And so you may like that, you may not like it, but just keep in mind that's Pluto's job, and that's what he's doing. And so Sometimes we just have to sit back and let the universe do its job, and that's what Pluto's doing. How long will Pluto remain in Capricorn? About 2 more years, Beth. We're coming into 22. I believe that it's in, Patricia, what is it, 2024? Or is it early 25? End of 23?
End of 23, I think.
It starts out in the end of 23, and then retrogrades back and comes back in 24. But so we got a little, but it's been here a long time. March of 23. End of March of 23 is when it first will leave Capricorn. Then it will come back into Capricorn, then it will go back. But its first exit is in March of 23. And then it will. And so in March it'll leave. In June it will come back. Eric says January of 24 is its final exit, Eric. Is that everybody's, they've all got ephemeris is good and they're all looking. So I don't have to. The point of that is we've been here for a very long time. January, Eric says January 21st, 2024, Pluto makes its last cross into Aquarius. Yippee-doo. Capricorn is structure and rules and government and status quo. And Pluto has, in the last 20 years, his job was to roto-root that. And that's what his job is. And now Pluto's going to go into Aquarius. And what do we think Pluto in Aquarius will do? It's going to transform, okay, but it's going to transform what? Community.
Technology.
Well, it certainly will transform technology in a big way, because you're at Aquarius is technology and it's humanity. But it's global. Aquarius is global. So where Pluto has changed inside government structures over the last 20 years, it's going to start changing global commitments. It's not, when Pluto goes into Aquarius, we're going to start to form different groups. I don't know what that looks like.
Global community.
Aquarius is, it's organizations. It's global communities where Pluto, but now it'll start out. Is it going to do it overnight? No, we got a 20-year trans. Or 18, whatever it is. You can see that that starts and it gets on the cusp, and then, which is what's happening in 23, 24. And Pluto is shifting back and forth. So that's what Pluto's doing. The last thing before we get off here, and I'll open it up, and if anybody has any questions, you're welcome to ask me before, not about your own charts, but about world or patterns or comments. But what about the Aries ingress? Now, what is this? This is when the sun goes to 0 Aries every year on March 20th at some point. 0, and this is what the sun says. The sun is at 0 degrees of Aries, 0, 0. This is a new beginning. It's our birthday for the world. People say, does the world have a chart? And I said, well, if we do, it's 0 Aries, 0, 0. So if we were going to pick a global chart to say, so what's happening on our planet? Because that's when the sun comes north from the southern hemisphere, comes across the equator, and heads north at 0. And so 0 Aries. So what does this tell us? Doing Washington, D.C., where is our focus for spring of 22 all the way through to spring of 23? Our focus is in the 10th house. It's around government and the control. We have 10 planets. We have 4 of them sitting in the 10th house. There is going to be stress in this country because the moon on that ingress at 0, 0, the moon will be in quincunx to the sun. And so it's going to create a stress aspect for us to the 10th house of the rulers of the country. And so the moon is the people. The 10th house is the rulers, are the rulers, not is, are. In this case, we got 4 different factions that we've got. On the spring equinox, Gemini is rising, which is communication, speaking, talking. Mercury's a big deal. For us next year, it's how we communicate, and it's what we communicate to the world. So now, the ninth house, generally speaking, in astrology, is the world, or global, or international, or, third house is short trips, ninth house is long distance and long journeys. So we have 3 planets in there. There's an awful lot of emphasis on international communication and international rulers, Saturn. So there's a lot of focus on our own government and the international governments next year. So, and the people, where are the people? People on the moon. They're down here in the 5th house. They're home. They're Libra. They're trying to keep balance.
Have fun.
Trying to have fun, 5th house, be enjoyable. The good news of this, we don't have any traumatic, hard planets in the 2nd house of our economics. And we don't, the 1st and 6th houses are about our health. And there are none of the heavy planets sitting there. So I believe that by spring, we are looking at a healthier economy and group of people for next summer. It certainly is more about government and communication and interaction than it is about, at home stuff. So I believe that people are going to feel like that they can get out and do more and travel, and at least in the United States.
What about Uranus squaring that Saturn, or Saturn, Neptune, Saturn, Venus?
Well, Uranus has been squaring, it's not squaring Saturn anymore, really. Saturn's gone.
Right.
But Uranus, the Venus, Mars are square Uranus.
Mm-hmm.
The urge for fun, the urge for excitement, Venus, Mars squaring Uranus, change, excitement, go and do. And I think next spring you're going to see people wanting to get out and go somewhere and do something. I don't think they're going to be as afraid of the money. Carol, is there any indication of the current tension between the U.S. and either Russia or China? Well, yes, Carol, I think there is. But it's not war. War would show up in the 7th house. Aggression. Mars is in the 9th house. I will show you the winter solstice for just a minute. I think this is interesting. Let's see. Pluto in the 8th, transformation of other people's money. Yeah. So if we go back to the spring, she's saying the spring equinox, Pluto's in there, transformation of investments, other people's money. Yeah, Pluto's into the old, beginning of the new. And so that can be high end distress. You see where Pluto is, it's at 28 come March, and so it will come back to 26 though.
Square the moon. People.
Thank you, Bruce. So in this chart, the moon is squaring that Pluto, and that is stress with the people over money and investments and changes. So there is stress with our money situation, and because the moon's the people and Pluto, 2nd and 8th house are money. This is your own money. This is investments, world money, and your God, none of our money's our own. So it's all with our debt. It's definitely 8th house money. Definitely 8th house money. Before then, anybody that has a question, but I will show you. I thought this was interesting. When we do, this is the winter solstice in December 21st, right before Christmas. And you can see the Saturn, Uranus, and all the stress that's in the world, and everybody's wound up. For us, it's our government and our home. But if I take this and relocate this to Beijing, China, and we relocate it, now you'll notice The sun's still at 0 Capricorn, okay? The moon's still at 27 Cancer. None of that changed, but the houses did. And so this is China, where all of our stuff was up here and out in the world, right? Theirs is at home. They are focused within. They are locked down. And so I looked at that when we did Beijing, and I said, how interesting. They definitely are going to take this and hold their people tight. And they're the people. They're the moon. So is there going to be an uprising? Because that moon's opposed Venus, Pluto. Is there an uprising from the people? The people are the highest planet in the chart, the moon. So if we're going to see a lot of stress, I think it would be in China.
Mars in the third house, is that some belligerent talk?
Mars in the third house is aggressive talk, yes. Because Mars is the warrior. And so in the third house of communication, it can be aggressive talk. But this is China's. If we take that, and I'll do one more thing I'll take the winter ingress, and let me, there it is again, it's ours, and go back and relocate it to Moscow. It will not be much different than China, because they're both pretty close. Although it is, I hadn't done this. What's the emphasis for Russia? This is from, say, December through March. This is the next quarter of what do we expect. And so they're putting their emphasis on health. Not only that, there's Chiron, the health healer, right on the midheaven. So you always look at planets on the 4 angles, 1, 4, 7, and 10 for indicators of intensity. And there's Chiron, the healer, and we have all this stuff in 5 and 6. 6th house is the health. So I don't know if Russia's talking about it because I don't watch much of the news, but I can tell you they've got a big, strong emphasis on health. You know,
Saturn in the
7th. Saturn in 7th, the ruler is rather aggressive. And
They're building troops on the Ukraine border.
Saturn, the president, Saturn is the ruler of any country. So Saturn in the 7th becomes the open enemy. So he is challenging. On this chart, does Sun, Moon, and Mercury out of bounds impact events? Announced today, diplomatic boycott of the Winter Olympics. Oh, really? Mm-hmm. Diplomatic boycott of the Winter Olympics in Beijing. How interesting. On this, when are the Olympics? Well, so Duffy, the sun doesn't ever go out of bounds because it sets the bounds. But what we have, the people are hidden behind the scenes for Russia. Yes, they are. They're hidden. The moon and Mercury are out of bounds for this particular time frame.
February 20th.
4th and the 20th of February.
Starting on the 4th?
February 4th.
So if we move up, let me take this and move it to February 4th. Let's take 21st.
4 hours ago,
Wait a minute. Here's December 29th. Here's January 6th. Okay, you're starting on the 4th, and then we want to go 1 month forward. Hang on. Let me do this. Okay, what happened to it? For the Olympics, how am I going to get there? Let's see. I want to go December 6th. How many months? January, February, 2 months? Mm-hmm. Here. I won't hit. Okay, here it is. This is February 6th. So let's see. The moon will be, well, we want the 4th. This is the day that the Olympics start. Athletes can still compete, though. No diplomatic. No diplomats
but
will
the
go.
athletes will be
Supported. Okay. So they're boycotting it. Wow.
That's a weird.
Well, this was, if we save this, yeah, set it for China. That's what I was going to say. Let me set this for Beijing. That's where it is, isn't it?
No, it's
Is
yeah, it's in Beijing.
Yeah, within 150 miles of radius around it.
I know, but Beijing is the site, you know.
Yeah, vertex in the 7th.
So here it is, February 4th. Now the time is, we don't know. So the houses, you can't, don't go by the houses because I don't know that it's starting at 6:15. I just happened to be the time that was set here. But look at, oh boy. Saturn will the sun will be conjunct Saturn when they roll out on this thing. It's going to be tight. It's going to be rigid. It's going to be controlled. Well, that's only at 6:15. You can't do that because I don't have a time. But we can't do houses. But we can do Sun Saturn with 9 minutes of exact. So that day, Sun Saturn are exactly conjunct. And let me tell you, Saturn is control. Saturn is black and white, rigid. So the controls are going to be incredibly tight. The moon's going to be in Aries, which is a bit aggressive. Anybody know?
Mercury.
Oh, that's what we were looking at. Thank you, Duffy. I wanted to see what was out of bounds. So the moon's back in, Mercury's back in, but Mars is out of bounds. So this Mars for the eclipse. I know I laid him out there. His favorites. Finish them. Mars is out of bounds. Now, Mars is exalted in Capricorn. So Venus is already, they played nice. Now Venus has moved on and now Mars is coming up close. And you know what? If you do patterns in charts, this would be considered a bundle led by Mars in Capricorn. It's gonna, I'm telling you, we've got Mars in Capricorn, Saturn rules Capricorn, and we got strong control. Strong control. So it's going to be tight. It's going to be serious. Now, keep in mind that February 4th, all over the world, Sun and Saturn will be conjunct, depending upon what your clock says for that time of day. But it's a Sun-Saturn day. And any of you that are born with Sun conjunct Saturn know that control is a huge issue. You know, the need to be in control, the need to be able to control your environment, to feel safe. That's Saturn conjunct the Sun. So they are going to be in tight control of the environment so that they feel like, you know, it's safe. Now you've got the moon in Aries, and so that's a bit of an aggressive moon. People are going to, I hope they don't fight. I hope we don't have any, you know, teams fighting. Notice that the nodes have backed from Gemini, Sag, they backed into the Taurus, Scorpio aspect. And for 18 months, we'll be plopping through there. So that's stabilizing their fixed signs, but they're also grind in a little bit stubborn. So I don't see anything right then. Thank goodness nothing is squaring those nodes during the, now it doesn't last, it'll be 12 days before the sun actually squares the nodes. How, and it goes from the 4th to the 20th?
Yeah, so it'll
16 days.
yeah.
So the sun will come in to square the nodes. And the day that the sun squares the nodes is the day that, that everything will probably stop. So if we'll know what the reality of it is by that. So 16 to 28 is 12. And 12 and 4 is 16. So about the 16th of February, 15th, 16th. And what is our, do we have a full moon then? Anybody, where's my lumination sheet?
Here,
Here. That's our Patricia's
Sarah
phone.
said the 16th is a full moon.
The 16th is
On
a full,
28 Leo,
at 28 Leo.
Unknown caller.
which will be exactly squaring the nodes.
Okay. So there is on the 16th a lunar eclipse at 16 Leo Aquarius, squaring the nodes. I mean, on the 16th at 28. All right, so the 15th and 16th of February will be the testing time for the Olympics. So we can all watch and see. The reason I like astrology is because you can watch the universe at work. And sometimes we have to remember to step back and let the universe do its job. We were talking about this weekend. We had a talk about letting the universe do its job. It will also be it'll be Leo, quincunxing Pluto. There'll be stress. There's going to be stress, and there's going to be power struggles with Sun conjunct Saturn. I'm just telling you. There's going to be stress and power struggles. That's what we're going to have. It's not the easiest chart in the world, and they're starting with Moon in Aries, which is not the most, happy time. So before we get off of here, does anybody have any questions about anything you'd like for me to look at? Or you want that we can go back and look at any of these charts? The idea was but let me sum up by saying I really do think when we get to March, things are looking up, and there's going to be a lot more freedom, and the nodes are going to be, moving, and I think we're coming into a better time. I think people are going to travel in the spring and summer. I think COVID, even after in January, is going to start to take a back seat. These eclipses coming up do not look really bad. I didn't run the eclipses for spring, but we'll do another in the spring. We get to March, Mindy will schedule another play evening, and we'll look at the eclipses for April, May. The one eclipse, the solar eclipse, is on April 30th. It's at 10 Taurus, and then on May, I think 15th, it's 25 Scorpio. Mm-hmm. It's a 25 Scorp. So I've been looking at them all day. That's how I know. So who has a question? Anybody here? Bruce or Pat? Patricia? Yay, nay, no? Anybody out there have a question? This is great. Bruce?
Talked about the financial markets possibly being affected.
I did, and I think that the ingress chart for this is Washington, D.C. You're welcome, Karen Taylor. Uranus, I think that the markets are going up and down during this quarter because it's Uranian and it's in Taurus, the sign of money. So I think we're going to see some instability in the markets. I don't think that that's a big shock for anybody.
Estimate maybe when they might level out.
Nope, because I don't watch it that much. I can look at the spring. We lost Kathy Ham.
Well, Uranus goes direct in the middle of January.
Uranus will go direct, yes, the middle of January in Taurus. And that may help to stabilize things. It'll stop being quite so up and down. By spring, for our country, we don't have anything in finance, in the market per se. So, Pluto's in Capricorn. It is investments for us. It's the investment market. Pluto could take a plunge or take a major shift, but the money currency is up and down, or the daily market, But investments, yes, Karen. I believe that when Saturn leaves Aquarius, but that's about a year from now, is when I think we see the housing market shift a great deal. Saturn stays in Aquarius for the next year. So until Saturn leaves Aquarius, which is pretty strong. So even though things are changing, it's pretty stable. Any other?
So,
what?
The equinox, 0 degrees Aries for the sun. I noticed the moon is only 6 minutes away from leaving Libra,
Yes.
which means it will leave Libra on that day.
On that day, but within an hour of that, and go into Scorpio. But it's a 29 Libra on the equinox. Therefore,
It's in conjunction.
you're going to carry Libra,
Okay.
the social, the people, balance relationship. That will, even though it's 29 and 54 minutes, and yes, within a half an hour afterward. But when that sun hits 0, Aries 0, 0, this is just like a birth chart.
Yeah.
It holds.
It's there.
And it is a critical degree. It is a critical degree, and it is squared to Pluto. And so there is restlessness with the people. There's certainly restlessness with the people. Okay, well, that's what we've got. And just for fun, we'll click the last transit and close it off. Happy holidays. Yes, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year to everybody. We'll see you guys in January, the Thursday night group. I will be here Wednesday night. We will be here. And then we're done till January. Although I will be here because I've got clients. But here is right now, interesting. All's quiet. Moon's in Capricorn. Moon's conjunct Venus. Aha, nice night. Yes, we'll do Thursday. We will do Thursday. I'm going to do, we had Jacqueline Jane from Philadelphia this last weekend, and I'm going to be talking about the age point and some of the other patterns that she brought up that I thought were quite interesting, and we can look at them from our perspective. So that's what we're going to do. All righty. Good night. Happy holidays. Blessings.